Hello, and welcome, all of you fabulous human beings, to our wonderful second episode of Housemates Comic Cave. Now, before we get into this, I just want to say we are back! After all this time, we have returned, and I cannot begin to tell you how much I am itching at the absolute brim to dive headfirst into this wonderful comic with my wonderful co-host.
Yeah, me too. I have also been itching at the brim all the time, just on a regular basis.
Yeah.
But yeah, for Superman Red Sun, I've loved it since high school, I think. I've picked it up just offhandedly because it has a cool cover. And I've heard...
You got to jump on me with this because I didn't even read this until like a few weeks ago.
Yeah, because Superman Red Sun, it was... I wasn't reading a lot of the like serialized comics at the time from DC, Marvel, anything. I just wasn't interested. I couldn't figure out where it was a common problem of not knowing where to start. Superman Red Sun, though, was like, oh, it's a single contained story. So I already know who these are.
So you were more interested in like independent properties and things like that.
Yeah, like Mark Millar's other works.
Yeah,
like Kick-Ass or Kingsman. Yeah. I would rather read those. I have such a huge. It turns out this is a common problem with
comic books.
Well, with serialized comic books, they've been going on so long, and there's so many different like offshoots and series.
Yeah, they veer
it's
off
hard.
in so many directions, and the writers change, the artists change, and it just becomes this crazy amalgamation of different stuff.
Yeah, it's just hard to keep track of. But I love a single story like this, and I especially love when they're done as well as Superman Red Sun.
Yeah.
And I think we're gonna talk about this in a few different sections. I think we're going to talk about.
Yeah, we're gonna be bouncing into a few different things throughout the course of this audience. So please bear with us.
Yeah, we'll be talking. We'll bring up the book first, which Kyle read for the first time. The movie, which I read for the first time. So I think this will be cut into book immediately at the beginning because we'll start at a high point. Then I'll talk about the movie I watched.
Yes.
And then we'll end on a high note for the story overall.
Yes. And we hope you're all sitting down because this is going to be definitely abusive.
Sit down.
Yes. How we're going to do this is this is going to come in a few different parts. He is going to talk about the movie Superman Red Sun, and I am going to touch on some of the highlights from the book itself.
Yeah, I can't say I'm excited to do it, but I'm hoping there will be some catharsis with this video. Maybe we can I can channel all my energy that I spent getting angry at this movie, and then put it in this video, and then be done with it.
At the very least, we'll be educating all the good people out there to stay away from it and avoid it like a disease.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, I've always thought of myself as a bit of an educator, but only about comic books.
Yeah.
And then not even then, though, because I hadn't actually known about very many of the. I hadn't actually known very much about Mark Millar before Superman Red Sun, because I hadn't read Kick-Ass or Kingsman. What was your experience with Mark Miller
before I read
Superman Red Sun?
Before I read Superman Red Sun, I actually read Kick-Ass. Mind you, this was back in like my sophomore year of high school, which was in like 2006 or something like that. And here was the thing: I didn't even know he wrote Old Man Logan until like a little while ago, but upon realizing that, like, that just made me more intrigued about him as like a writer and whatnot. And then it's like, and then I read this, and here's the thing: Mark Millar is very deliberate when it comes to his choices as to how he wants things to go and how he wants things to be and whatnot. Like two really good examples of this are how some of the elements are treated in this and Kick-Ass. Like in this, Superman believes he's doing good things for all the right reasons, and through that he learns how to become not just really good, not just a symbol of Russia, but also just a savior of humanity as a whole. Whereas on the flip side of that, in the story of Kick-Ass learns how Kick-Ass learns how to not only be a good superhero, but also how to just be a good person as a whole and whatnot.
Yeah, you would hope that would happen in the movie adaptation.
Yeah,
and because with Kick-Ass, I thought the movie was pretty good. The live action. So Kick-Ass though was pulled off. It was Zack Snyder, right? It was a Zack Snyder movie.
Yeah.
He pulled it off really well. Superman Red Son, the movie though, is an animated movie. It's one of the direct to DVD, not just close enough to R-rated that they kind of throw token swear words in and maybe some references to sex or whatever. But mostly it's watchable if you're like a kid or a teenager.
That's
not that you should watch it though, because it's heinously bad. Even if
oh gosh, here we go, folks.
But I will let you talk about the comic first. We need to sell what a major drop in quality of the movie is by talking about how good the comic book is.
Yes, here's the thing, folks. The comic is absolute gold. The writing is solid. The characters are very well developed. The universe that they're in is very grounded. And the struggle and the internal logic just really meshes together in a really good cohesive package. It really does come together in a really good way in this comic. Now, on the flip side of that,
well, what do I even say? But I wonder how many people watching this will have seen the movie, because it just came out this summer.
But by the way, if any of you have seen the movie, please let us know down in the comments below. Anyway,
yeah, but. I wonder how many people who watched the movie first and didn't know about the comic. So it's another DC animated movie. They saw it on it was on Amazon
service or something like that,
or they were at Redbox, if those still exist.
Yeah, mind you, Redboxes do still exist.
Oh,
people, they aren't extinct yet.
I refuse to leave the house.
Oh, you're one of those people.
Yeah.
Okay, what is it about Superman Red Son the movie that makes it so pulverizing from its source material? Why is it so awful and just so terrible that it feels like a completely different product than the source that it came from?
Well, you know what? I think we're going to need a few different sections to talk about this in. Now that we've sold that way, this
is going to be a real doozy, folks.
So, let's get into those right now. The writing.
Oh my gosh.
I'll let you talk. You know what? We're going to be as fair as possible here.
Exactly.
Because our feelings are contrasted. Because he had a great experience with a new thing he'd never seen. I had a terrible experience of something that felt like it really brought down the quality of something I loved.
Folks, before we get into this, I am just going to stress to you right now, we are going to be as diplomatic and open-minded about this as we possibly can. So please bear with us.
It's nuclear warfare for me.
Okay then. Well then, now you guys know what we're getting into. So with that being said, the writing. Oh my gosh, the writing in this is absolutely incredible, because not only are a lot of the messages and dialogue and stuff in there relevant, not only was it all relevant in 2003, but in my opinion, a lot of the points that were made in here to an extent are still even relevant, even by today's comic standards and stuff, because they just hit on a lot of really good villains. And there are a lot of really good moral quandaries throughout the entire story with the characters and everything. But on the flip side of that,
On the flip side of that is this movie. And not just a flip side, it's almost like a faceplant. So the movie is on the right, he goes, you would think,
is it a faceplant or is it botched plastic surgery?
botched plastic surgery first, then planting on a face that's still healing from plastic surgery.
No.
So,
Oh no.
We'll say right now, the movie was, it's executive produced by Bruce Timm, one of the main creator of Batman the Animated Series from the 90s. And so it's in that same animation style as that. It's in the style of the Justice League cartoon from the same time period. You would think
there would be the same care and credibility put into those shows in this movie, but
you shouldn't think that because you're wrong. The movie, I don't know. I'm not even sure who wrote the rest of this though. Because it credits Bruce Timm and Paul Dini as people who worked on the movie, and then Mark Miller is credited with like original story idea, but it's garbage. So the strength of dialogue in the book is that it's very subtle and works with who the characters are and where they are. Where it's this because it's set so being set in Soviet Russia, they're like, oh well, the characters in the comic would say. They're sort of like subterfuge, or they're like most of the characters around Superman as he was raised in a Soviet society to become the Superman figure for the state. The members of the state are trying to be manipulative to him and trick him into doing things. In Superman Red Son, they just show you like oh, here's Stalin in the 1940s. And they immediately like, oh hey, Superman, do not worry about these gulags you have heard about. They are not the big deal. And that's literally. I'll get to the voice acting in a minute because you can't talk about voice acting in a book, but
if my
the voice acting.
Is anything to go on, by the way. Continue.
Yeah, they have solid actors. They have like Tara Reid and people like that. They have solid, like professional voice actors.
Good voice cast.
All of the voice direction though is do as stereotypical a Russian accent as possible, like Boris and Natasha from Rocky and Bullwinkle level. It's like oh, and then.
Although the difference between this and that is Boris and Natasha from Rocky and Bullwinkle are actually endearing. However,
yeah, there's none of that subtlety that exists in the movie, where in the comic it actually does sound like people with an odd relationship with each other in a strange universe, and like figuring things out in like within the culture of the Soviet state and how they interact with Americans in other countries and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
The movie is do not worry, Superman. We are not trying to manipulate you at all. Don't worry about it. It's totally cool. Like it sucks, dude. And then everybody else in the movie is vaguely okay. Like the American, anybody with an American voice just sounds, because it's all American actors. So anybody with that voice sounds okay. Everybody else anybody who tries to do an accent sounds absurd. Like they're doing like a stereotype of a Russian person.
Are you serious?
Yeah. So there's a part. I'll spoil a little bit here because this happens. I think this happens in the comic where there's a part where Superman finds the gulags they're going to, where people are being sent to because they're for various reasons. It's a real thing in the history of Soviet Russia where people are sent to gulags, stuff like that.
Mind you, gulags do actually exist in history.
Yeah, so they go there. You would think oh, this should be taken pretty seriously. That was kind of extreme because they were in Siberia, so you would think there'd be really like a scary, chilling style to it where things are further. There's there's frost on black metal and rust and dripping water and stuff like that.
Yeah. When
he goes in there, it's just like a dark cave that people in, and they're like, it looks like the most boring video. Like people are you don't know what they're mining, but it's just people like swinging a pickaxe sadly at something in chains.
So they're not even hitting anything.
Well, they're hitting stuff, but they don't tell you what you would be mining in this. So do you need minerals? Are you looking for gold? What's going on there? And when he gets there, one of the
So you don't even know what is happening in the gulag or anything?
There's no reason that these people
No
are,
reason behind it.
No, and it
It's
doesn't
just
show-
no reason.
It doesn't show the severity of them the same way the comic does, where like but it just looks
So it doesn't.
like
touch
it's
on-
like oh, the lights are off in this cave, it's scary. And like there's a part where one of the worst lines of dialogue I remember from the movie. There's a kid who Superman sees in the Gulag, who comes out. He goes he comes out. Superman's like, his superhero attack last. He was like, "What? Oh no, I did not know any of this was happening. How could this be possible?" And then like one of the little like poor children from the Gulag comes out. He comes out like
Oh, Superman, you could not save us. You could hear anything, but you could not hear our cries.
What? Are you serious?
the hammiest, corniest ever. And you know what happens
Tommy
after that?
Wiseau, eat your heart out.
Pretty much, yeah. What happens immediately after that is you see the transition away from the kid is a bunch of bats come out of like and fly because they're in the cave, and then that's supposed to be what signals to you that kid is growing up to be Batman in this universe.
That is not how it was done in the comic.
How you don't have to spoil as much. You don't have to spoil it that much because it is worth reading for those good parts.
I'm not.
What
I'm
is
not
the
trying
quality?
to. I'm not trying to. It's just that with some of the stuff he's saying, I just can't help but speak out against some of the inconsistencies that this movie is blatantly doing.
Yeah. So what? But how? You don't have to, like I said, you don't have to say what happened. But what are some of the qualities of how they handled Superman finding out the like state corruption that he'd been raised in to believe that was like a perfect utopia?
They handled it in a way where Superman always believed he was fighting for the right cause for the right reasons and everything, and he always believed that that whenever something bad was happening in any part of the country, no matter how big or small it was, he always had to handle it in some way or another. And in my opinion, that honestly made him more interesting, more fascinating as a character compared to like how he was in previous works and stuff. But on the flip side,
It's just very sad. So they don't in the comic they show where, like you said, where it is Superman as like a power as a resource of the state.
yeah,
So that so many people end up relying on him. So they're like, oh well, they loosen safety standards because they knew Superman would come to save them.
Mhm.
As opposed, but it's such a it sort of is a like what if scenario of what if Superman was raised by the communist state and it had these responsibilities and acted with the same philosophy. In the movie, he just he comes over. Like I said with the Gulags, he comes back to the Gulags. Sounds like, hey, you was like, you have to break a few eggs to make an omelet. And he's like, that kind of speech. And Superman's like, no, we have to find what is right, which is the most simplistic version of what's being said in the comic. And then he turns on his heat vision and just melts Stalin and takes over
What?
he usurps him as the
What?
state is like, I'm Superman, I'm running things now.
Mind you, audience, this is actual disgust on my face. He actually kills Stalin?
Yeah, he melts him with his heat.
What?
And then says he's
I'm
the-
sorry, ladies and gentlemen, but this is actually causing me brain aneurysms right now.
Yeah. And then he takes over and then he decides to run the country that way. Which, by the way, they don't show you any of his development of how he could become head of state. And they also don't show you the conflicts that would happen with his superpowers in relation to the rest of the
So
country
it
and the
doesn't
world. Like it
even-
does in the comic.
Yeah, in the comic, it's like we see the growth that he goes through from being not just a superpower of communist Russia, but moving further and further up to accepting the mantle of being what Stalin envisioned for the future of Russia and stuff in the story and whatnot. But with how you're saying it, it just sounds like the movie completely ignores his journey and everything in favor of just being like, oh, no, that's that's too hard. We're just gonna do this version instead.
Pretty much, yeah. They don't. Most of it. I'll put it this way: if I could be succinct about how the writing works in the movie, it takes a very thoughtful and carefully written comic book story and throws all of that in the garbage and decides, like, well, we're gonna take the premise of this and then make a really bad episode of the Justice League cartoon. Like one of the really, like, if you, whatever your least favorite episode of the original Justice League cartoon is, imagine that, but worse, and then trying to handle an adaptation of an actual good
Folks,
comic
if
book.
there are any episodes of the Justice League you legitimately hate, once again, please post them down in the comments below.
It's just so disappointing because, like, for as long a time as it had been since I had read the comic originally, I remembered how good it was at the time, and just contrasting that with how the movie was written and just how clumsy and really, really thoughtless it is. But you know what? Why don't we talk about some specific characters like Batman, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, etc.
Now, in this part, we're going to be touching on the characters and how they were handled in both the comic book and the movie itself. Personally, I honestly felt that how they were executed in the comic was not only faithful to how they originally were in the DC lineup, but because it was Mark Miller, he kind of added his own essence and flavoring to them while still, staying true to who they were as characters and whatnot. Here's a clear example. Batman in this story is actually a terrorist, and on the flip side of that, in his original DC run, most people saw him as a vigilante. So him being a terrorist in this story really doesn't seem like too far of a stretch, one way or the other. And Green Lantern is also really interesting in the story because he starts out as this Vietnam vet who later becomes very instrumental in the defense of the United States and whatnot. And then there's of course Wonder Woman, who not only becomes an ambassador to her native island of Themyscira, but also she and Superman's fates become interlinked, and it becomes this really interesting relationship between the two of them that actually plays out all the way through up until the excellent climax near the end of the story. Now, on the flip side of that,
Like I said earlier, Batman in the movies' entire reason for becoming Batman is told as like, oh, this kid was in this gulag place, and he gave some corny dialogue, some bats flew out, now he's Batman. They don't show you how he becomes Batman either. They don't tell you how he developed into, how he got these powers. Was he in the military? How did he get his? He still has gadgets and stuff like that. And so he has like explosives and guns and stuff.
But it's such an important part of the comic. We're supposed to learn how he gets to that point.
Yep. Doesn't happen at all. No. It goes, and then eventually you find the conflict that happens with Superman and Batman is Batman explaining in the way that every single other character does the most basic Wikipedia level understanding of why being a tyrannical superhero dictator is bad. It is bad because you take the rights away from the people. No, but I am helping the people, though. I am good Superman. You are a bad Superman. I am going to blow you up now. That's essentially the dialogue of cartoon characters getting mad at each other over garbage, and it's.
Oh my gosh.
And so here's the way that Batman in the comic, of course, is supposed to be. He's supposed to have developed into this radical. Who has very threadbare resources. He has almost nothing, but he
Into this crazy, insane extremist who believes he's doing the right thing.
yeah, and then you do get a sense of him being able to pull stuff together. He does not have, like he does in the movie, somehow enough resources to make a like a secret underground area with miniature red suns. They're not miniature red suns, but they're like red light lamps that are pulsing down the Superman. Like, no, you don't have your powers anymore. Like, where did you get? You're not a billionaire in the Soviet. You don't have billionaires in Soviet Russia.
It's like, how did you make this? Where did all this come from?
You were a kid who crawled out of a gulag who was raised by a bat. Where did you get the money for this?
Yeah,
Who could you possibly?
Yeah, it's like you're not Bruce Wayne. You're different.
Yeah, it just doesn't. And they don't tell you like, oh, was he an engineer or was he or anything? There's no. You have no idea why.
So
Batman
nothing
lives.
about him in the movie is even established or anything.
No, you have no idea. And then it ends. The way he. So Batman. We'll just say it. Batman dies in the comic. But
Yeah.
his
Yeah.
death. What leads
Spoiler,
up to
by
his
the way.
what leads up to his death is really interesting.
Yeah.
In the comic, at least.
Yeah.
In the movie. It's
There's
such
no
a wet fart of an ending that
There's
tries
no
to be
build-up.
interesting.
No build up. Nothing.
No. So it builds up in like in the most basic way that like the Justice League cartoon or the Superman cartoon would, where there's like, oh, it's bad, there's fight. There's like some choreography that goes on. Batman looks like he has the upper hand. Superman looks like he has the upper hand, and then it resolves. It's the very basic fight that you see in most of the Justice League cartoon, or most of the movies even, where they're choreographed like competently. But none of the story lends itself to making that interesting. It's just a reasonably well animated fight.
So it's not even a good animated fight. It's just
It's competent.
it's ridiculous.
It's competent, but it's not like there's almost nothing creative about it or
Because
careful and enthralling the way it is in the comics.
Because you would think that a showdown between two extremists who believe that they're doing the right thing would lead to a really interesting climax between the two of them.
And you would think that, like they do in the comic here,
Yeah.
using the typical fraught relationship that Batman and Superman have in the regular comics is explored in here with their flip dynamic and how they exist in the world. The movie's like, we don't know how to show you that. We only have like 90 minutes here. Here's a fight. Watch it. Have fun. Moving on.
We don't have the time and we don't have the budget to flesh out this fight the way that it was in the comics, so we're just gonna do this.
Pretty much, yeah.
basically, right?
And then just the way they handle, they handle Wonder Woman worse though. They screwed Wonder Woman over so badly in this movie. It's just so
How
it's
paper
horrible.
thin did they make her?
Not only paper thin, but almost like they've whittled her down to a slogan, almost where
Right.
so like the basic like dumb guy idea of Themyscira is like, they're mad at men all the time. They had to go there because they're mad at disgusting. But the way she develops is like where she just like everybody else in the movie, she just declares, I thought when men were bad, but I saw the good things you were doing, so I thought maybe good man, good. And she was like, yes, I am good man who is good. And then you find out later because there's like Superman as he develops becomes more and more willing to like corrupt his state and be more controlling with the use of Brainiac, which they also don't explain very well. They just dump him in the movie too as another conflict to have. And then once Wonder Woman finds out about that and then has a conflict that involves Batman in the movie, every single thing she says is, "Oh, men." She's got to like, "Oh," it's like I
Like
thought men
there's-
were
there's
good, but you betrayed me. Man's is bad now. I'm going back to Themyscira. It's the dumbest possible idea of what someone would think Wonder Woman would be.
At least in the comic, her character is executed with so much more respect and dignity.
Yeah, it handles it way better as like a legitimate, like super powerful mythological force,
Yeah.
and someone acting as a diplomat in this fictionalized political
Yeah,
world.
in the story, Mark Miller handles her extraordinarily well with a lot of care, credibility, and respect. Whereas the movie, she is weaker than dishwater.
It is terrible. it's just so sad to see like a legitimately cool superhero who deserves a cool scene in a good movie.
Yes, but she doesn't get that.
No, not even as well as I've mentioned the Justice League a few times before as sort of a waypoint between something that is pretty high quality for an animated comic book style show, this being a really great comic book, and then the movie being garbage as an adaptation and garbage as a movie by itself.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, you've mentioned Green Lantern, right? Like you would think, like, oh, what a cool hero.
Yeah.
I
loved this. Yeah.
They just dump him in the movie as like Hal Jordan is just a guy from the Air Force who shows up and gets the ring from an alien that just happened to crash land on Earth.
So basically, what you are saying is that in the animated movie, it doesn't even feel like any of the other characters who take place are given care, credibility, development. None of that.
No.
Mind you, audience, this is visible disgust on my face right now.
It's some of it's almost laughable, but I'm gonna get to the funniest parts later because I've already mentioned like little bat child giving his little his gulag speech and then escaping.
Yeah, this rabbit hole goes much deeper, folks. So, in conclusion, avoid the movie, but please check out the comic. It is absolutely incredible.
Yeah, and if you're really interested in watching the movie, watch the movie first and then read the comic book. Just watching the movie first, be like, if you go through it and you don't know, and you don't have the contrast of how good the comic is, you're like, oh well, this is like a mid-tier to mediocre DC animated movie. It's like that was pretty corny, not very good, whatever. Then you go read the comic book, like, oh, that was the worst thing I've ever seen. What? How can I possibly? I haven't seen that many of the other DC animated movies. I've seen a decent amount of them, but all the ones I have seen have been really, really good. Like, I mean, it just name a couple. Like even like the Mr. Freeze movie,
Sub-Zero,
yeah, Sub-Zero, yeah, that's what it was. Sub-Zero, Mask of the Phantasm.
Yeah, that one's really
one of the best, probably the best of that era of animated superheroes.
Yeah, and here's the thing, folks. Batman: Mask of the Phantasm came out in the early '90s. It still impacts me even in this day.
Yeah, I don't remember that back then. I wasn't born yet, but
you were still a fetus.
yeah. Tell more stories, Grandpa. But anyway, so the movie, it's a horrible contrast to the other DC animated movies where you should expect some degree of quality to them, and it's an even worse contrast to a great comic book. Yeah. So don't watch if you really have to go see it. If it sounded cool and you didn't know about the comic book before, fine, go watch it. If you can find a free way of watching it at a friend's house without me endorsing piracy,
whatever you do not pay money to see the movie, please.
No, just go. If you really have to, go watch it for as little money as possible.
Yes.
Then read the comic book, and then don't ever think about the movie again.
Yes, and then after that, form your own opinion as to how much better you believe the comic was compared to the movie. because here's the thing. In my opinion, the movie and the comic are in two completely different classes, but the comic book completely outclasses the movie in just about every single way.
Yeah, and that's just from he hasn't seen it yet. That's just from
I haven't.
Secondhand impression of some trailers.
So all my knowledge of all my intimate knowledge of this is coming from you.
Yeah.
I mean, I've only seen clips and a few trailers, but I haven't actually sat down and seen the movie from beginning to end. But after hearing your soapbox of this, I am probably gonna avoid the movie even more so now.
Oh yeah, don't. It was depressing to finish the movie. It was like, is this really what I sat through for an hour and a half for this movie? I thought.
More depressing than the ending of Old Yeller.
That movie made me wish I was Old Yeller.
Wait, you actually wish you were infected with rabies and then shot by a shotgun?
Yeah, maybe just one of those. Really, I don't want to.
Mind you, we are not endorsing suicide. We are not. He is just aware of how much pain the movie caused him to feel upon seeing it.
Yeah, please take me out behind the shed and then erase my memory of this movie.
Please dump some bleach into his brain so that way the slate will be wiped clean.
And so, hopefully, if we ever do another comic book with a movie adaptation, it'll be a better one.
Which actually, now that you mention it, to all of you lovely people at home, our next episode of Comic Cave is going to be on The Rocketeer. So we hope you all look forward to that. We look forward to returning with you to talk about that, digest it, and show you people what our thoughts are on it. And by the way, if you enjoyed this, don't forget to like, favorite, subscribe, and leave us some comments down below. And also, one final note before we wrap up. Me and Nate are totally and completely aware of how unpredictable and absolutely insane things seem right now. And we just want to say to all of you lovely people out there, you are not alone in this. We hear you, and we are just here to give you entertainment for entertainment's sake, just so that way you people don't lose yourselves in all this overwhelmingness. So, just so you know, we are here for each and every single one of you, and we care about you, and you are worthy of love, respect, and dignity.
We're kind of like Larry and Bob in VeggieTales right now for the ending.
Except we're not sentient vegetables.
I have further questions, but we'll save that for the next time on Comic Cave.
Yes, so until next time, bye-bye!